Hello, special fans. Welcome back to another episode of Accessible Athletics. This is going to be another exciting episode because on this episode, I have Callum Denault, who is an associate coordinator at Special Olympics Canada, joining me. Callum has been with Special Olympics since he was 7 years old. He participated in athletics and powerlifting. He recently won a silver medal with the Etobicoke Stingers at the 2024 Special Olympics Ontario Provincial Games and 4 more medals at the 2025 Provincial Games for track and field. Callum has also competed in international unified tournaments such as the 2018 NIRSA Championships, where the University of Toronto team he was on won gold at the Special Olympics Ohio Games. In addition to being very involved athletically with the Special Olympics, outside of this, Callum has a black belt in Taekwondo and trains in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Very impressive. Callum also received his bachelor's in journalism from Toronto Metropolitan University in 2024 and is now an associate coordinator at Special Olympics Canada. He is passionate about using his skills to promote inclusion and share the stories of his fellow Special Olympic athletes. Well, Callum, that is quite the bio, and I'm very excited to have you on my show today. Thank you for taking the time to join me.
Thanks for having me, man.
So, Callum, you and I first met in Ottawa in October last year during the Special Olympics Canada Hill Day 2025 on Parliament Hill. I'm not sure about you, but that was my first time meeting members of Parliament and sharing my story. It was very exciting for me. How was the experience for you?
Yeah, I would say it's very exciting too. It wasn't my first experience with politicians. I've advocated for Special Olympics with members of government before, and I've also met with politicians outside of that. You know, it's part of some of the journalism I did. But what I really liked about Hill Day was just how genuinely excited a lot of the members of federal government were, and how supportive they were of us during that day. And that was the main point, was just to increase awareness and forge those relationships, because, you know, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities are part of this country, and I'm glad that the people in charge of this country are empathetic towards that. It was a great day.
Yeah, it was it was a very fun day. I really enjoyed it. So you've been with the Special Olympics since you were 7 years old, and you are now an associate coordinator for Special Olympics Canada. This is very impressive. Can you tell us how this all came about for you?
Yeah, so I'm autistic. I was diagnosed severe nonverbal. I was born in Los Angeles, and I think it's different now, unfortunately, but at the time they had really good early intervention services, like better than what we have in Ontario. They had, like, I went to a preschool for children with autism. I had a speech language therapist. A lot of that was covered by the government, which is weird because the American healthcare doesn't usually cover that kind of stuff, but it did for me. And I had supportive family as well. When we got to Canada, when we moved back to Canada, they signed me up for Special Olympics, so they knew I wanted to. I mean, you know why? Like the community, sports, forming friendships, being on a team, learning just the discipline of going to regular practice. That was very instrumental to me growing up. How I got the job at Special Olympics Canada, so I was offered a job by in 2018 when I was with the school programs. I think he retired. There was a very nice man who worked at Special Olympics Ontario called Gary McLean, and he offered me. They had an internship. So Canada Summer Jobs Program is like a it's an amazing program. They give grants to different nonprofits across Canada, and that money is used to hire interns. I think the interns have to be like under 30 years old. It used to be like you have to be in school. Now it's just like if you're under 30. So I worked a few summers at Special Olympics in Ontario through the Canada Summer Jobs Program, and I've been an athlete for a very long time. I've been volunteering, and long story short, I when I graduated with my degree in journalism, it was a good fit for the marketing communications team at Special Olympics Canada.
Well, it sounds like it was quite the journey for you to get involved. But now that you're involved, it sounds like it's a pretty fun experience for you and a very interesting experience for you.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
So you've mentioned that you want to use your journalism and communication skills to write stories about people who are underrepresented in the media. How are you contributing to this, and why is this important to you?
Well, I feel like, obviously, I've been doing that with Special Olympics. A lot of our research, like in the healthy athletes, shows that people with intellectual developmental disabilities in particular are not given enough medical treatment. A lot of that's because of a lack of, both a lack of understanding among the health professionals, but also just there's a lot of stuff we don't know. Like there's so many different disabilities and ways they meet, like sort of intertwine with society. It's like a lot of research is like just learning new stuff. So Special Olympics is big for this. Like countless medical volunteers and medical students that come out to help deliver our free health screenings towards athletes, and that's honestly as good for the medical practitioners in some ways as it is for the athletes, because they're learning how to treat a population that isn't very well understood. As a journalist, I know what it's like to be what they call an invisible minority, which is someone that that might not look like they're part of a minority group, but I am, because autism is not a visible disability, like it's an invisible one. And I've also grown up closely with friends and family members who are immigrants, and I've seen some of the challenges they go through, especially if they don't speak, if they live in Toronto, they don't speak English fluently, that can close some doors. So I wanted to be the kind of journalist who showed those stories of people like that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm happy to work with Special Olympics Canada, is it's a place where I can do that regularly.
Well, that sounds like you really want to get out there so that people can, hear your story and they can understand, what is Special Olympics really about. So I think that is good that you're getting it out there.
Thank you.
So you're a journalist. Do you still compete as an athlete too, or do you just focus most of your time on doing journalism stuff instead of competing?
Yeah, I still compete. The good thing about working with Special Olympics Canada, for me, it's better where it's like that kind of 9-to-5 job. I prefer having a regular schedule, and I'm not always writing stories. I also work in donor relations, and there's other tasks I do that are more like sort of day to day. Being like what I call a gumshoe journalist, which is like the sort of movie trope of like going to media scrums and constantly finding people to interview. That was very hectic. I could do it, but it wasn't. That was harder to find that work-life balance. It was also harder to regularly be productive because sometimes you hit a dry spell. So, what was it you asked me again? I kind of lost my train of thought.
Cause you're a journalist, so do you focus more on journalism instead of competing, or do you also compete in the Special Olympics too?
Yeah, well, I feel like I have to be part of Special Olympics. Both for two reasons. One, it's really important for me. Like, my friends are in it. It gets me out of the house. It makes me social. It's a place where I can be myself, which is not a lot of places. It keeps me fit. But also, like, if I'm writing about athletes. Well, I am one, but I also need to meet other athletes and stay in the community. So yeah, I'm regularly once a week. I go to my powerlifting team. I also have a track and field team. I make sure I go to as many of the practices as I can, and I also compete in local tournaments. So whenever there's a tournament that's like within transit distance of me, I go to it.
Oh, nice. So do you go to like the winter games, the national summer games and stuff, or do you not really focus on that? You just kind of do it for fun now?
I wish,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, like you mentioned earlier, I went to the Brantford games last year. So yeah, I'm competitive. I like to go to competitions. I want to see how far I can go. And even though I didn't make nationals, there's no reason not to still compete at local tournaments and try again next cycle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You keep trying, and if you don't do better one time, you just gotta. That just tells you, well, I need to maybe just practice so for next time maybe I can win gold, because that's what it's all about. It's just practicing and just even having fun.
Exactly. Well said. Exactly.
So, Cam, if I understand correctly, you believe that Special Olympics programs, which hire athletes or individuals with an intellectual or developmental disability, benefits everyone. Can you share why?
Yeah. So I think a good answer for this. There's a program developed by Special Olympics International called Unified Leadership, and I think I can't remember the name of. I think it was United Airlines. They recently helped a major billion-dollar airline company learn how to hire employees with intellectual and developmental disabilities, which is amazing for building the inclusive world that we want in Special Olympics. The more different types of people you hire in a job, regardless of what that job is, the more perspectives you have, and that changes. That just makes things more efficient. And with Special Olympics in particular, it's a charity for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So I feel like there has to be people involved in decision making who are part of that community that we're affecting, right? And I'm not the only one. Pretty much every Special Olympics board I could think of, like the Special Olympics Canada board, the Special Olympics Ontario board, all of them have an athlete representative. The analogy I use is it would be like a feminist charity that only had men as employees. Like you would be like, but if there's women working for that organization, they're like, okay, well then you understand the people that you're raising money to support. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, you want Special Olympics to be like, you want them to support men, but you also want them to support the women too, because that's what it should be about too.
Well, and that's another good example. Is I often say I'm just one athlete. Like there are things I go through as I speak English fluently. I have autism. I'm a tall, able-bodied white man. Someone like my brother is my adopted brother is from the Ivory Coast. He's from West Africa, and he's fluent in English, but he has a very heavy accent. Like he can understand English better than he can speak it. So he goes through some different things than I go through, right? But then he also has better fine motor skill than I do. Like I do have fine motor control, but it took a lot of work to get to that point. He never had the common autistic symptom of struggling with his hand dexterity. So yeah, just having more people from different walks of life, different backgrounds, makes your organization able to relate to more people and come up with more ideas. This is a weird analogy. Bear with me on this. So in World War II, there were I think it was the American military, or it could have been the Canadian. The American Air Force was trying to figure out how to make their planes stronger so that they could save lives and keep our pilots from getting shot down. And they would look at the planes that came back that had a bunch of bullet holes on the wings, and they would go, okay, all those places where there's bullet holes, we need to patch that up. And then one guy comes up and says, no, you got it wrong. We need to patch up everywhere that the planes were not shot. Because what happened was the planes that came back with all those holes in them, they were still able to fly. And the guy said that the ones that didn't make it back, the ones that crashed, were shot in like important parts. So it was a bias that we had. It was called a survivorship bias. And I think that story is important. Like, we had these were like really smart people that were scientists working for the military. And it was just one person who had a different perspective than everyone else there. And he was right. And he told them to make a decision that saved a bunch of lives. And when you look at, that's why a lot of companies, I mean, Special Olympics is different, but even for-profit companies or government offices, if you just hire one kind of person or a very narrow group of people, they might not be able to come up with some of those really important decisions that someone from a completely different perspective could. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was a good way of putting it too with the history, because it has a better understanding of how it is now and stuff.
Thank you. I'm glad it wasn't too off the wall.
And it also makes this episode more interesting, like, got a bit of history on this episode. It just makes this episode more interesting too, which I think will be good.
Thank you.
What do you like the most about your role as an associate coordinator at Special Olympics Canada?
I like giving back. I like giving back to the community that helped me. It's also, it's a fun job. Like, I get to meet all these wonderful athletes like you. I get to speak with volunteers. The volunteers are some of the best people to meet with because they're so positive, and like, I am giving back. I am doing this out of the goodness of my heart, but I'm also being paid for it. And these volunteers do it for free. Like, they just do it because they really love helping people, and it's an honor being able to write stories for people like that.
Yeah, these volunteers really are amazing people. Like, all these volunteers that volunteer with Special Olympics, they all have full-time jobs, and then they come right after their work to our hockey practices at 5-6 o'clock, and because they're there still because they want to be. They go to like the World Games overseas. They go to national, provincial games. It's just what they do for these athletes. It really is. I don't think no matter how much we try, I don't think we'll ever be able to show them how much we really appreciate all of these volunteers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they really are the lifeblood of a lot of charities, including Special Olympics, for sure.
Yeah. So what do you find challenging about your role?
I would say spreading awareness that, like, there's a lot of misconceptions about Special Olympics and people with intellectual or developmental disabilities. So there's that. Like, people still mix this up with the Paralympics. They still think it's only high-performance athletes who can make it to the World Games, not people who are of different ability levels, which is the whole point of Special Olympics, is to be for people regardless of their ability level. The other one is, because of our work in donor relations, sometimes it can be hard to maintain donors. Like, a lot of people say they want to cancel because of financial difficulty, which is hard because I understand, like, the economy is really difficult. And I don't know specifically where you are, but where I live, in a lot of places, real estate is really expensive. And during winter, I find that food becomes more expensive, especially if you're trying to eat healthy, like you're trying to eat fresh vegetables or fresh fruit. So it can be hard to get people to realize that, like, no, we still cherish your support, and our athletes, like, we do something that really, really improves lives, and in some cases save lives, because of how much we're providing to a pretty marginalized group of people. The donor relations employee may have to get this out. We say even as little as $5 or $10 a month goes a long way. or for people who don't like those kind of scheduled commitments, that we also have one-time gifts where you just like donate a certain amount of money and then boop, that's it. But yeah, I'll say that's one of the hardest parts.
As an associate coordinator for Special Olympics, what do you do? Like, what is your job, and how would you like help overcome that challenge about all that was going on with that you just mentioned there in that last question? How would you overcome that challenge as as associate coordinator? Because I know that's a pretty big challenge, and yeah.
That is a good question. Yeah, a lot of Special Olympics employees we have weird titles. I don't know why. Subject coordinator basically means I work in two departments. I work in Marcoms, Marketing Communications, and then IDMP. Do not ask me what that stands for. I don't know. I say it's donor relations because that's what we do. There's also business development. So, like, if you see the galas for like the big corporate partnerships, like the Tim Hortons promotion, that's business development. And then donor relations is like regular people that give us like $20 a month or like just random donations like that. So what I do with donor relations is what we call stewardship. So like, someone that's working a regular job, like maybe someone works at a Walmart, or they're living off a pension, or they're just like, just have a standard income. They're going out of their way to give money towards Special Olympics Canada because they believe in our cause. They deserve a lot of respect. And if they have any issues, like they want to cancel, they want to upgrade, which means spend more money, downgrade, which means spend less. They have issues with their democracy, they moved, need to update their address so that we can mail them their stuff. We're there to make sure that they're taken care of and that they're satisfied, as well as given the gratitude they deserve. I think to answer your question, how I get through challenges is we question ourselves a lot. Like there's something called analytics. So let's say we send out an email, and people do not like that email. We can tell like, oh, no one clicked on this. Or as I'm going through the email that we have for donors, I'll be like, hey, a lot of people. Actually, yeah, I did. There was a letter we sent out with like we sent out mail checks to people, and there were three. I think it was like $20, $30 or $60, something like that. Like three different numbers that you could check mark as like how much you want to give. You can also write your own number because it's a check. But like we circled $30, like sort of like being like click this one. And some people didn't like that because they were like, hey, I can only give 5 or 10. Like, well, you're sort of making me feel like that's not enough. And that's not all the message we want to send. We want to be grateful for everything that people give us because it does go a long way. So we got rid of that little circle, just to make sure that everyone is respected for how much they give. And I think that that's important. It's like we all make mistakes, but just don't make them again, and try and be different in the future.
Well, I think that's very, very interesting. So, as we both know, Special Olympics Canada has a yearly National Awards Night where they celebrate our extraordinary athletes, our dedicated coaches, and selfless volunteers from coast to coast. In 2024, you co-host this event live on TSN with TSN broadcaster Vic Rowder, who's a very cool guy, by the way. That must have been a very cool experience for you. How did that role come about for you? And what was that experience like?
Well, it was incredible. Yeah, Vic Rowder is a very nice guy. He gave me a tour of TSN Studios, which is really impressive. They have a lot of cool equipment there. It came about, it was, I think it was my first year of working with Special Olympics Canada, and they needed an athlete to co-host it. It made a lot of sense because I did broadcasting in school, so I had the experience. Yeah, it was nice. The hardest part for me was I can't speak French, like je parle un peu français. Mais je ne parle pas bien. My accent is pretty all over the place. So I remember working with my mom and reading through. I had all the French parts of the script, and I was reading through, and she had to, because I learned a lot of my French from my adopted brother who's from West Africa. So my accent was this weird mix of Parisian French, which is like European French, which is like the neutral accent that TSN and broadcasters use, and then a little bit of like Ivorian. And some of the words they pronounce are a bit different, kind of like how Quebecois accent sounds different than Parisian accents. So she worked on me like, no, don't say merci, say merci. That's how you say thank you in like TSN, like the French they want you to speak is merci, not merci. So that was probably the hardest part. The athlete that we had last year, Olivier Martel, he is like truly bilingual. He can't. I don't know what part of Quebec. He's from a town in Quebec, and he did a great job. Like, that's actually another challenge. Is I'm really passionate on because of my brother. I'm really passionate about making sure that we reach out to francophone communities and make sure everything that we do is bilingual. But because we're in Toronto, there's not a lot of French speakers here, including myself. Like my French is not fluent enough for me to count bilingual. So I guess that's a bit of a tangent. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a cool experience. Did you have fun? Like, how was it for you? It must have been very fun, exciting, especially getting a tour of like the TSM building, because that's not something everybody gets a tour of every day.
No, absolutely not. It's huge. It was really good because I worked really hard at Toronto Metropolitan University, or TMU, and it was good that sometimes school can be hard, but I still learned actual skills, and I did get the degree, which is the most important part. It was a bit validating to be able to use the stuff I learned in school on like a real job. So that was really cool as well.
And it's also nice to have to take your mind off of it too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
So Callum, you've been very involved athletically with the Special Olympics. You also have a black belt in Taekwondo, and I understand you train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You obviously know the importance of living a healthy lifestyle, but a healthy lifestyle can be challenging for some of our athletes with an intellectual and developmental disability. What do you think our athletes can do when they are struggling to work on their health?
Everybody starts somewhere. That's the important part. Like, often we do accommodated exercises. So, like, an example is if you cannot do a full push-up, you can put your knees on the floor and then do a push-up. Or if that's too hard, you can go to a wall and do wall push-ups. So here's a good example. I'm proud of this. I can do multiple pull-ups in a row. Like I can do 12 pull-ups, full body weight, no assist. But that wasn't always the case. I'm pretty tall, and one of the things about being tall is it's hard to put on muscle because you have longer limbs, you need more food, and I'm heavier. So before I could do like full pull-ups, I would have a machine where you kneel on it, and then there's like a weight that sort of makes you lighter, and I would train on that. I would go really slow. I'd focus on my technique. And truth be told, I hated using that. I did not like the not being able to do it myself. I did not like having to use the machine. I forced myself to use it because I wanted to improve my physique and I wanted to get stronger. And then I started practicing a bit with like where I would go up to a pull-up part that I could reach from the ground, and then I would jump and try and like sort of float in the air to see how long I could stay there. It took a long time, but it took about a year, but I got to the point where I can now like climb stuff and just sort of like monkey bar around on things. There's a friend of mine who did a pull-up, like 2 full pull-ups, like his first try, which is annoying, but like he had a different body and different needs, right? So I would say if you're struggling to work on your health, and if you're really unhealthy, which is unfortunately the case for a lot of our athletes, just make improvements. might not lose 100 pounds overnight, but you can start eating healthier. You can start, if you can't run for 5 kilometers, run for 1 kilometer, run down the block, jog, walk faster. If you're in a wheelchair, then you have to like you can go for a long ride, right? That's what I would say. Start somewhere. Make the improvements, even if they don't happen overnight. The changes will come if you keep it up.
And that's a very good advice, because unfortunately I've seen that back in the case too, back in in Calgary where I live. There's unfortunately a lot of athletes that don't make very good choices, especially like after their game and stuff. So for them to hear this advice, hopefully that helps them just to be healthier, because it helps you out. It helps you as a person to be healthier. You're just a lot happier, and you're just gonna have a lot more fun and enjoy your life more. So. Well, Callum, this has been a great conversation. As I mentioned earlier, you have a very impressive bio, and it was great getting to know more about you. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on my show today, and I'll make sure that if I see you in person, I won't get too close to you, because I don't want you to kick my butt with all your martial arts training, so I gotta be more careful.
You come out black belt too, right?
Yeah, but...
pretty equal.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time, and this has been a fun interview, so thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
I'm your host, Damien Chiodo, reminding you to continue making a healthy lifestyle your priority, and stay tuned for the next episode of Accessible Athletics.